Multicultural virtual teams, group 3. Trust is the successful ingredient in a virtual workplace.
Some of the challenges that we encounter in multicultural virtual teams include cultural differences, technology inequities, and language barriers that often make it difficult for virtual teams to interact successfully. The key to success is communication, and this is the most important factor when working with virtual teams.
Trust plays a role in the perception of leaders' communication and perceived team performance. This is built through the communication on the part of the leader with their virtual teams. The more a leader is able to communicate and the more effectively a leader is able to communicate with their teams, the more trust they are able to build.
So, with trust, based on the article that was reviewed, titled The Determinants of Trust in a Multicultural Global Virtual Team, the definition of trust, and this comes from the Meyer et al. 1995 definitions, very common. It says, which is the willingness of a party to be vulnerable to the actions of another party on the expectations that the other will perform a particular action important to the trustor, regardless of the ability to monitor it. Now, within a team, basically the trust means is trust is not taking risk per se, but it is a willingness to take the risk. So in teams, though, teams trust is slightly different. Here, trust has been identified as the confidence that the members in each group are dependable and are going to act within the group. This study was interesting. It shared something that was rather unusual. This study suggests that the development of trust in multicultural teams, yes, there is a cultural aspect, conflict, task interdependence, and communications. However, while team members' cultural values have consistent predictive power, diversity within the group, either culturally or demographic, displayed minimal relationship with trust, which is unusual. The fact that cultural diversity does not appear to serve as a barrier to trust, even as differences become apparent through communication. Therefore, including team members in a horizontal rather than a vertical communication appears to be a preferable strategy for fostering trust.
I think it's safe to say that leading virtual teams isn't something that was on the forefront of everyone's mind prior to 2020. Face-to-face encounters are complex enough without adding, or in some cases, mandating a digital interaction as well. So as virtual teams are becoming more popular, it's important to be mindful of two elements: trust and communication. These are essential to successful virtual meetings. The primary challenges of successfully leading virtual teams include virtually cultivating trust with other team members, the lack of face-to-face contact, and overcoming communication barriers, whether that be language or technology. So with this in mind, being intentional about creating a safe space is key to birthing an environment where people are comfortable enough to be themselves. Clear communication is also crucial. Set goals and expectations, establish agendas, have a clear timeline, and also action items. And remember that communication is not just one-sided. Encourage others to participate and engage, ask questions, and call on them if need be. So again, as we're leading in these virtual teams, remember that it's important to utilize both trust and communication to ensure a successful virtual meeting.
When communicating in a multicultural setting, one of the most important ways of communication is to adapt communication. And there are certain adaptations that individuals will use to increase communication in multicultural virtual teams. And one of them is by using humor. This is a way to diffuse tension and build relationships among the teams. Another adaptation is to confirm understanding with one another. Check in and make sure that there's an understanding about the topic that's being discussed. Another adapting communication skill is to ask open questions to check for understanding. And then the fourth adaptation is to repeat in their own words to check for understanding. So repeating what the other individuals in the group have stated to make sure that everyone's on the same page and that they have the same understanding moving forward.
This article provided some specific recommendations in order to build these virtual teams. The leaders need to provide clear direction and goals early in the process in order to build that trust that we've talked about and help the team perform. Some suggestions on how to do that are to create FaceTime so team members can get to know one another, not just jump straight into the meeting. And then also set and explain the goals and expectations, including group norms.
So additional recommendations include provide ongoing feedback, use technology to ensure good communication. And it is mentioned that it is important to over-communicate since everyone will interpret written and verbal communication through their own cultural lens. Define clear roles for team members and showcase their competencies and foster those cultural understandings, which also include emotional aspects. So when issues like language barrier exist, we must consider online chat instead of verbal communication to facilitate dialogue. Overall, the benefits of virtual teams always overweighed the pitfalls.
So with global teams becoming a huge part of the workplace, choosing teams frequently is a part of something that people are doing every day. And having a model in order to put a team together is a really pragmatic idea. So to choose with purpose, so the team has to understand first and foremost what its objective is and why the team has been assembled, what it's been assembled to do. Next, leadership should think about the people that have that are being assigned to the group. We have to make sure that they have the talent that is needed to do the job. And it's also a good idea to think about the cultural diversity within the group, thinking about whether the players in the group come from a culture that is more of a team type of culture or individual type culture. And individual type cultures will need to be balanced with those that that are more collective in nature. And so, and third is the process, and that's ultimately what's going to create trust within the group, is that if the group can trust a process where a team is going to consistently meet and be held accountable for expectations, and that if there's a problem, that the team is able to address it through a process. So with those three aspects, those are a great foundation for creating teams. It creates a clarity for purpose and diversity with skills so that the task can be accomplished.
So take a moment to think about how difficult it is to achieve team effectiveness. Now throw in the fact that you are working in a virtual environment with all of those challenges that come with that that reality. And now also add to that complexity the fact that you are working a cross-cultural environment, which adds challenges to the team environment, to the team makeup. Not only do you have different cultures, you're working with technology variables that may be different to the different teams. You have language barriers. So to wrap this up, I'm going to go to the next slide, and I just want to talk about some key themes that we've seen throughout this presentation and through this literature review that we've done regarding virtual teams in a cross-cultural environment. First and foremost, the two themes that come out are trust and communication. Those are the two building blocks that allow for downstream success within the team. Through proper communication, you can establish norms, clear roles and responsibilities, and expectations. With trust, you can start establishing goals as a team that you can start building towards and achieving those objectives as you begin to meet and then begin to proceed in this team environment in a virtual setting. And that wraps up our presentation for this literature review that really focuses on cross-cultural virtual teams and the importance of trust and communication.